Francis is here. Go ahead and get started. Is this aiming too low? Okay. Last time we were talking about some problems that you can have. They did a youth risk behavior surveillance project. This is back a couple decades ago. It was conducted by the CDC. They were trying to determine what behaviors lead to early death. They were trying to figure out why people die young. If the following are started when young, is predicted, one of them is smoking. Tobacco is not good for you. So any use of tobacco will lead to an earlier death. As I told you before, I've been obsessed with this since I was a kid. I used to read all the obituaries, trying to figure out why people died and how old they were. And of course, what I was trying to show was that my own family lived for an extended length of time. We live longer than just about anybody else. And even to this day, if I look at an obituary, I'll see how long they lived, and then I'll say, well, my mother was 98 when she died. And so I assume that I'm going to live at least as long as my mother is, possibly as long as my dad lived. And my dad had a heart problem. So, he lived to be 90 years old. I know, I brag about this to myself all the time. I don't smoke. And one of the reasons I don't smoke is because I want to live forever. Or I want to live as long as I possibly can. Here's one that I have a problem with. Eating high-fat and low-fiber foods. When I was young, my mother cooked, and my mother lived through the Depression. During the Depression, they used a lot of fat. They used a lot of animal fat. And the reason they did is because they didn't have enough food. So they needed to get as many calories out of a meal as possible. And that's one of the reasons why they made gravy every time they had a meal. My dad always ate bread and gravy for supper. That's one of the things he always ate. And the reason is because he grew up during the Depression.
So that could be called shit on a shingle?
Shit on a shingle is something a little bit different. That's shit on a shingle is chip beef on toast.
It's like like birds.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I heard that somewhere.
It's a military term for chip beef on toast. Of course, chip beef is the kind of meat you used to get in your K-rations. That's what it's like Spam, but it's like almost jerky. And they make a gravy out of it. Oh God, and it's a white gravy. Oh, it's nasty. My wife loves it because she's been military all of her life. Anyway, so eating high-fat foods was one of the things that people did. On Friday, I won the raffle, and they gave me a bowl full of stuff. One of the things in there was bluebird flour. Another thing in there was salt. There was a thing of salt. There was a container of salt. There was a container of baking powder. I was supposed to make fry bread out of this thing. Okay. And then there was a chunk of lard. And that's what you cook your fry bread in, lard. Dumbest thing in the world. It was a big cube of it.
Is that blue?
Yeah. Lard is not good. Lard is rendered as pig fat. That's what lard is. It's animal fat, okay? It's like drinking bacon grease. Not a good idea. Lard. So this is, and of course I've never eaten lard because I'm from, where I'm from we don't. And the reason we don't do that is because we used to raise our pigs. We used to raise pigs, and so pig farmers used to die really, really young. They would eat pork chops, and they'd eat pork steak, and they'd eat ham, they'd eat a lot of pork fat. And they would cook in lard. And so they died in their 30s. They died of heart attacks in their 30s. So we figured that out back in the 50s. So as a 50s child, my mother never cooked with lard. And if somebody does cook with lard, it It makes their clothes smell funny. Same way with bacon. You can smell bacon grease on people's clothes for days. Lard's the same way. I used to have a neighbor that cooked with lard. They're all dead. There were 5 kids in their family. They've all died. I had a good friend that died in his 20s from a heart attack. And of course his mother cooked with lard all the time. Now, of course, you can cook with Crisco, and it's not that much better than lard, but of course we cooked with Crisco. Theoretically, it was healthier than lard was. Anyway, so if you cook, eat high-fat foods and low-fiber foods, then you're going to die young. If you engage in if you don't engage in enough physical activity, you don't walk up the stairs. Kiana and I did you walk the stairs today? I walked the stairs. Did you walk the stairs?
No.
Of course not. And of course, came up the elevator. We're not going to pick on Sharon today. Well, let's pick on Sharon today. Did you walk the stairs today, Sharon?
I'm gonna go now.
Okay.
I'll be right back. 1 hour later.
You need to get enough physical activity. It's not easy. It's not the easiest thing in the world. Some people will drive if they have to go a quarter of a mile. They'll get in their car and drive a quarter of a mile. As stupid as that sounds. Or 200 yards. They'll get in their car and drive 200 yards. They won't wear clothes that they can wear outside. They never wear a coat. This is one I can't figure out. They park as close to the door as they possibly can, so they won't get cold on their way in. Oh, geez, it's snowing outside, man. Come on. You should wear winter clothes in the wintertime.
Did you take the stairs?
Just in
No, I
case.
took the first thing with the elevator.
You were late though.
Yeah,
Okay. You've got boots on today.
it's muddy outside.
Yeah, well look at his, he's got boots on too. I like your boots. I like your boots too. I can't wear them because my feet are too wide. I almost said fat, but that's very nice. Okay. You can abuse alcohol or other drugs, including marijuana. Not using proven medical methods for preventing or diagnosing diseases early. You need to get your flu shot if you're that kind of a person. If you're female, of course, males don't need vaccines. But males should have colonoscopies, and you're supposed to get a colonoscopy after you turn 50. You're supposed to get a colonoscopy. My wife just had a mammogram, which is okay, good for her. She just had a mammogram. Not the most fun thing in the world. I know they take your boob and they squash it. That's how they do a mammogram, is by compressing the. I know it's stupid. I used to work in radiology, and of course, this is one of the things that we did was mammograms. I hated doing it. It was not my most fun thing in the whole wide world. I've never had a colonoscopy, and I'm 70 years old. I should have had probably half a dozen by this time, but I haven't had any because I don't want somebody sticking anything up my butt. Thank you very much. How do we know if you have colon cancer? Is there a way to know it? Is there something that happens? How do you know if you have colon cancer?
Bleeding?
Yeah, there's blood in your stool. Potentially there's blood in your stool. Exactly. So there's a new colon guard. They've got this new test for it. All it is, it's looking for blood in your stool. That's all that is. Anyway, we will go
Wasn't
ahead.
like those commercials where you like poop on it and then you mail it?
Yeah, that's colon guard.
Oh, okay.
I know.
That's so weird.
They're looking for blood. And we used to call it occult blood because it's hidden blood. You can't see it, so it's occult
Just
blood.
imagine being the mailman.
Well, it's in a plastic package, so you don't have to worry about that. But I agree with you. I used to work with that stuff all the time. I know, it stinks. It's bad. We used to have a guy that every time he had to do parasitology, he had to work with human feces, he would smoke cigars. So, which was a worse smell. Personally, I find it worse than anybody else. Do you want to talk about feces, or are we done? Because I can talk about feces if you want. The reality is your feces smells like whatever you ate. So if you ate onions, it's going to smell like onions. If you ate cauliflower, it's going to smell like cauliflower. If you ate mutton, it's going to smell like, it really does. It smells like mutton. So if you eat beef, it has a certain odor to it. If you eat pork, it has a certain odor to it. If you eat mutton, it has a certain odor to it. If you eat that stuff, it's going to smell like Activia. What is this?
Yeah.
Activia. Engaging in violent behavior that may cause unintentional injuries, of course, is another way of dying young. We're trying to live forever. And we do this by being good boys and girls. And that being good means not drinking, not smoking, not taking drugs, not eating well, eating your Activia whenever you feel like you need to, consuming calcium. You guys don't have to worry about osteoporosis. But if you were white, you would have to worry about osteoporosis. 9.5 years into the famous Alameda health study, the mortality of men who regularly practiced all 7 health habits was 28% of the mortality of those who had practiced 3 or fewer healthy behaviors. And usually the healthy behaviors they weren't practicing included smoking and taking drugs. You need to sleep 7 to 8 hours every day. Don't ever smoke. You're going to live a long time if you don't smoke. If you consume tobacco, you can rationalize it any way you want. You're still going to die young. I'm sorry. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm not cursing you so that you will die young. It's the tobacco that's... I'm not going to use the F-bomb. I almost dropped it. Almost happened. I was talking to that Marine over the weekend, and every third word was that. I don't know. Marines, what the hell? What are you going to do with it? You got to have them. There's something wrong with it. Being at or near a healthy body weight. Healthy body weight is really controversial right now because the BMI schedule was set up for tall, slender people. It wasn't set up for Hispanic people who are short and squat. Wasn't set up for a lot of American Indians, especially American Indians from the Southwest. If you go up to the north, the northern plains, those guys are tall and relatively slender. Some of them are big, but most of them are tall and slender. They're really tall people. So they fit the BMI schedule. My people came from, we were coal miners in central England. And in order to get into those mine holes, you have to be kind of short, and you have to be kind of broad-shouldered, because you need to, you're picking off the coal. So you had to be short and broad, and actually you moved.
Is that okay?
You've never sat at this table before. You always sat back there. Something's going on. Okay. Anyway, so my people don't fit either. Because we're short and relatively squat as well. We're broad-shouldered. The broader your shoulders, the more weight you carry on your back and your chest. And that's okay because, yeah, exactly. So being at or near a healthy body weight, moderate use of alcohol. You can use some alcohol. It relaxes you. And for that reason, people that drink 1 drink a day are thought not to get. But if you've ever drunk to excess, then you need not go back and drink that 1 drink a day. You'll go back to drinking. Suddenly it's 2 drinks. And then you can't stop it. You drank the whole damn 6-pack, and now you're drunk. Regular physical exercise. Walking up and down the stairs is not a bad idea. It's getting harder and harder for me to make it all the way up to the top. I have to carry all this stuff with me. And it's heavy. My backpack is heavy. Turns out computers are not lightweights. It's kind of heavy. Anyway, regular exercise, eating breakfast and avoiding between meal snacks. Did everybody eat breakfast this morning? Is this your breakfast, Activia?
Yeah, with some other stuff. Like
Okay.
fruit.
Oh, I saw you eat a banana. Yeah, okay. Everybody have breakfast this morning? So you don't feel hungry. You don't, have to eat that candy bar. Drink that Dr. Pepper.
In the
My-
morning.
My second wife she drank a Dr. Pepper for breakfast every morning and ate biscuits and gravy. Biscuits and gravy with a Dr. Pepper every morning.
Damn.
The advertisement for Dr. Pepper used to be that you were supposed to drink a Dr. Pepper at 10 o'clock in the morning, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It said it right there on the bottle, 10, 2, and 4. And that was part of their advertising campaign. Drink a Dr. Pepper, 10, 2, and 4. And you drinking coffee. Is that what you have for breakfast, coffee?
This is the only intake so far.
Oh my God. Do you feel hungry? What are you going to eat for lunch?
Not yet. I'm not sure.
I know my husband don't really eat in the morning.
At all?
He don't like he'll just drink coffee and then just, I gotta eat.
You have to eat. I
Yeah.
can't eat. I can't eat in the morning. I don't know why.
I just had to have something.
Like I'll make breakfast, but I'll make it for
Somebody else.
someone. But I can't.
Have you ever had a baby?
No.
Well, you're all prepared for your morning sickness, so don't change your habits.
Oh, thank
Ever
you.
get pregnant.
You're ready now.
Well, she doesn't eat in the morning, so her stomach is going to be empty for morning sickness. How perfect is that?
Oh my God.
So, no, you're good. You're good to go.
Grinder will be
Don't worry, you're all set up. Okay. We're all ready for that to take place. Okay, so we're looking at the individuals who practiced all 7, or people that didn't practice very many of them. As you can see, the fewer healthy activities that you participated in, the earlier that you died. The more positive activities that you did, the longer that you lived. That's just the way it works. If you've done something in your life, you smoked cigarettes, you drank alcohol, you cut your life by a certain number of years. There's no way you can get those years back. It's all over. So if you smoked for 30 years, you may have cut 10 years off your life. And those years are already gone. There's nothing you can do about it. You can be the healthiest person that you possibly can be. And I would suggest that you do that, because now you're going to optimize the rest of the time that you have left. And you need to do that. Go ahead and optimize the time that you have left. And that's a good thing. I mean, maybe you would have lived to be 120 years old. Who knows? Yeah. So if you cut 10 years off of that, that's 110. It's not that big a deal. Don't worry about it. When you're 110, you're not very functional anyway. This non-stage theory emphasizes the interacting factors that influence our decision making about health behaviors. We usually rationalize what we did as youths. A lot of times we did what we did to be rebellious. We drank, we smoked, we ran around with strange people who took us in toxic environments, and so we consumed all those toxins. That's all right. That's your rebellious stage. Did it cut years off your life? Maybe months, maybe weeks off your life. Don't worry about it. It's too late to worry about it now anyway. I'm 70 years old and I look back on my life and I go, oh my God, all that bacon that I ate. Oh my goodness gracious. I used to fry my potatoes in bacon grease. So I would fry up a rasher of bacon, and then I would cut my potatoes in the bacon grease. And sometimes I'd break the bacon up into my fried potatoes. That's good. Yeah, it's stupid. Something stupid. I fed my kids on that stuff. I know. Poisoning my own children. If we believe that an available course of action will reduce our susceptibility to or the severity of the condition, then we will engage in that health behavior based on our perceived susceptibility. How susceptible am I? That's why kids smoke and drink and do stupid things. They do dumb things like they drive their cars really, really, really fast. When I was young, everybody drag raced. Drag racing was a very popular thing to do. Well, drag racing, you go as fast as you possibly can, usually down a 2-lane highway, and if you go off to one side, of course you have to correct to get back on the road. and you sometimes overcorrect. You're going 100, 120 miles an hour anyway, and now you're dead. Whoops. And this happened a lot. We had a lot of people that died in those stupid accidents. So you perceive your susceptibility. When I was in the military, when people were shooting at me, I knew that I wasn't going to be hit. No, I hoped I wouldn't be hit. I didn't know anything. I was hoping that they didn't aim very well. I was talking to somebody this weekend. He was talking about AK-47s and how bad they are at hitting what they're shooting at. Usually they just pull off a lot of rounds and hope that something hits somebody. That's usually the way an AK-47 works. Not a very tight weapon. It's not so they're hard to aim. Anyway, and nobody hit me. I was lucky. Nobody shot me. This is in Germany. I think I told you this story. This guy was about 15 feet away from me, and he had a little bitty pistol, a little bitty .22, and he aimed it at me, and I could see him, and he was aiming at my forehead. He was going to put a round right between my eyes. And so, and I could see his arm was moving a little bit, and I was kind of standing there, and I saw it happening, and all this happened within a couple nanoseconds of each other. And of course, I started to duck, but I didn't have time to duck. He squeezed off a round, and that round, I watched that thing go down. So instead of going straight out, he pulled the trigger, it went down, and it hit my car. I was standing beside my car, and he punched a hole in the hood of my car. I guess I was lucky that
That's twice. That's that guy and then the kid.
Yeah, and the kid, exactly. Anyway, so I was lucky. And I already told you the story about when I bent over and the guy behind me got shot right in the forehead. So I was just as susceptible as anybody else, but I thought that I wasn't. I thought I was bulletproof, which wasn't true at all. Perceived severity of the health threat. How bad is the health threat? Everybody smokes, so how bad is that health threat? Well, it turns out it's really, really serious. How bad is that bacon grease that I drank for breakfast? Really, really bad, because I did have a heart attack. Perceived benefits of and barriers to treatment, and then cues to action, and that is you exercising and doing whatever you can to stay away. The health belief model is where a person takes action if they regard themselves as susceptible. If you've got a certain problem in your family, if you're a native, then potentially one of your susceptibilities is diabetes. So what are you going to do to combat diabetes? How are you going to keep from getting diabetes? You're Indians. There's nothing you can do about it. Your genes say that you are susceptible to type 2 diabetes. So how are you going to keep from getting it?
Change the way you eat.
Change the way that you eat. Stop consuming too many fats and sugars. It's the only thing you can do. Drink a lot of water. Keep walking up those damn stairs. You're doing good. Look at this. You're such a good girl. Look at this stuff that she's eating. She'll live forever. Way to go. They believe the condition has serious personal consequences. They believe that the course of action will either reduce their susceptibility or the severity of their condition. A lot of individuals on the reservation, I'm killing my best buddy. I'm killing Marius. It's my fault. If he comes down with diabetes, it's my fault.
Cake?
No, it's not the cake. He didn't eat the cake. No, he drinks my Mountain Dew. And he'll come over and he'll say, you got a soda? And I'll say, sure. Of course, I give him a Mountain Dew. And then I'll offer him a second one. And he always takes the second one. So if he comes down with diabetes, it's my fault. The only time he drinks soda is here. And I'm the one that gives it to him.
But this
I gave him a whole 12-pack the other day.
But it's not just one intake. It has to be over a long
Oh,
period of
yeah.
time.
I know. He's been my friend for 3 years.
Oh my gosh. Damn.
I'm a bad person. I'm
Offer him-
poisoning my friend.
Just give him water, like have water bottles.
I gave him a water the other day. I thought he was going to throw it back in my face. Oh man, I'm killing that guy. And I love him. He's a really nice, sweet guy. And here I am killing him. Sharon's back in the back, shaking her head. I'm killing my friend. Oh my God. And he's not just the fact that he's Native American, but the fact that his dad, his mom, he's got like 3 brothers with diabetes. I mean, it's in his family, and he doesn't exercise. Maybe I should take him out running or something. Yeah, probably, if I'm lucky, he'll probably want to get in his car and follow me or something. They believe that the benefits of the action outweigh the costs, and of course, this is the problem with Marius and I. He wants that soda. That's what he wants. He craves it. Now I've got him hooked on Code Red. That's what I drink. So I mean, if he didn't like it, it would be perfect. But he likes the stuff now, and he won't drink anything else. Environmental influences are encouraging change, and I've talked to him about it. And this is really tough because this is our relationship. Is I give him something to drink because that's the way my people are. We always give you something to drink. Usually it's tea or something like that. I don't drink tea. Environmental influences are encouraging change. Your family, your boss, your health department want you to change and be healthier. My brother was working for an organization, and they had a 10,000 step program where everybody had a pedometer, and everybody tried to walk 10,000 steps. And every day, if they made their 10,000 steps, or they went 13,000 steps or whatever, they wrote it down. And if they could do this over a consecutive period of time, they got a certificate. And if they did it over a select number of months, their name went in for some kind of a special prize. I mean, it was his organization was trying to keep their people healthy. And of course, the healthier they are, the more they work, the less time they have to take off. All of that stuff. Okay. The theory of planned behavior predicts that a person's decision to engage in a particular health behavior is based on behavioral intention, determined by 3 factors: personal attitude toward the behavior. Of course, we could talk about Marius and his soda drinking. Motivation to comply with the views of other people in regard to the behavior. I've talked to him about his diet, the susceptibility to diabetes. He knows it. And theoretically, he tells me anyway, that he doesn't ever drink anything sugary at home. He told me that. Should I believe him, or do you think he's pulling my leg? He just wants another Mountain Dew. Is that what he... Yeah. I'll give him another one if he wants it, I guess. And I'm the villain. If he comes down with diabetes, you know I'm going to feel bad. Maybe I should retire so that I don't... It's just a perceived expectation of success in performing the behavior. I am going to sign my contract for next year, so I will be back next year. At least one more year. Or not.
When you say year, are you talking about like 2 semesters or 1?
I'm coming back for next year, so I'll be
Okay.
the whole year. So hopefully that allows everybody to graduate. I'll try to get rid of all the people I like, so. Try to get you guys to graduate, that's what I mean. How many people who's graduating this year? Sharon, are you graduating? Monique, are you graduating this year? But you're my 202 class.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be December, not May.
Oh, that's fine, I'll be here. I'll get you guys out here. I talked to these people in the teaching psychology, and I told them I was going to teach human sexuality next spring, I think. And I didn't have any opposition, so we're good to go. Yeah.
Is that going to be added to the checklist? Or replace.
I don't know where it's going to be on the checklist. I have no idea. It's just, it'll be a counseling class. Yeah, it'll be a class that you can take
Well,
if you're
it'd be like
going into counseling.
Yeah, okay.
If you're going into counseling, it's a class you probably will want to take. Human sexuality. Of course, you were here when all the uproar started yet last year about the whole thing. Poor Wilson. Anyway, so we're good to go. That class will be taught, and whoever somebody convinced one of my colleagues that it was okay, and that despite the fact it's taboo and it's non-traditional, we're going to be okay. So thank you, whoever you are out there.
You're welcome. Just kidding.
The trans-theoretical or stages of change model assesses a person's readiness to act on a new, healthier behavior. The model also identifies strategies and processes to guide the individual through the stages of change to successful action and maintenance. Critics point out that the stages are not mutually exclusive, and people do not always move sequentially through discrete stages as they strive to change health behavior. And we're talking about different stages, and of course the first stage is the preconception stage. This is an individual that doesn't think that there's any problems. That's where Marius is right now with his potential diabetes. The individual is not thinking about changing their behavior. They may be in denial that the behavior needs to be changed.
That sounds like you're giving him the soda.
I am. I'm giving him the soda. It's my fault. If he comes down with diabetes, it'll be my fault.
Are you gonna change it?
Hell no. If he wants that soda, I'll give it to him. I drink a lot more soda than he does now, but I'm not susceptible to diabetes like he is. I don't have any diabetes in my family. I can eat all the sugar I want. All I'm doing is offering him something. He needs to not take it. He needs to ask for something else. I'm rationalizing. Yeah, you can see it.
Is that the self-fulfilling prophecy? Basically the same thing.
I'll be okay. Will I feel guilty about it? Sure, I'll feel guilty. I'll be in trouble. Stage 2, contemplation. They admit that they have a problem. They are seriously considering changing the behavior in the near future. This is where you have to be if you go through treatment. This is what AA is all about. You can go to all the AA meetings that you want, but if you don't think you're an alcoholic, you're not going to change your behavior. You have to admit that there's a problem. With anything, you have to admit that there's a problem. This is what is going on with people with antisocial personality disorder. They don't think that there's a problem, and so they won't change. They may have gotten into all kinds of trouble because of their antisocial personality disorders. But until they admit that they've got a problem, they're not going to change. Psychology doesn't work if the people don't think that they have a problem. We can only help people that recognize their problem. If you're an alcoholic, if you're a drug addict, if you're smoking pot and think that there's nothing wrong with pot, that it's organic and therefore it must be good, then there's nothing we can do to help you. You have to be in this state. You have to at least go through this contemplation stage where you recognize that there is a problem. Some people die. You see this all the time. People with emphysema, because they smoke cigarettes and they're on oxygen, they'll pull off their oxygen to smoke another cigarette. The cigarettes are killing them. The cigarettes are why they have emphysema. But they will never admit it. They'll die smoking that cigarette because they have never gone through the contemplation stage. Stage 3, the preparation stage. This stage includes both thoughts and actions. The actions include specific plans toward the behavioral change, and of course, this is what I'm talking about with Marius. If he wants to be serious about not contracting diabetes, he needs to stop asking for soda. I don't call it soda anyway. I call it pop. I'm from the Midwest. He calls it soda. It's like he's from New York City or something. The action stage, people are actually changing their behavior and are trying to sustain their efforts. See, I'm rationalizing all this. This is sad. Stage 5 is maintenance. The people maintain their success. As in the case of the addictive behavior, this stage can last indefinitely. An arbitrary cutoff is at 6 months. So if they can stay clean for 6 months, they're probably clean now, and they can stay clean. They just need to stay away from the stuff. All right. We've had a problem with this. There are individuals that will tell them that they can use every once in a while, as long as they don't go back to the same usage pattern they had before. But if they're really an addict, when they start using again, they'll go back to the same pattern that they were on before. Very few people cannot go back, can try it and not become an addict again. And this is what happened to Robin Williams. He used once and he started using, he started back on the same pattern again. So he had to go back to treatment, even though it had only lasted for a couple of days. He had used cocaine again. And when he realized what was going on, he realized he had snorted a lot of cocaine. And now he needed to go back to treatment to get cleaned up. And then he realized he couldn't do it. And that's when he committed suicide. Primary prevention refers the health-enhancing efforts to prevent disease or injury from occurring. Wearing your seatbelt, practicing good nutrition, exercising, avoiding smoking, obtaining regular health screening. When I say avoiding smoking, I'm also talking about not being around people when they're smoking. So if people smoke in your house, then you have to stay away from those people when they're smoking, because you get secondhand smoke. And you also get third-hand smoke. So you need to avoid smoking, obtaining regular health screening, maintaining healthy sleep patterns, which is a tough one, especially during midterm. And this is midterm week. Secondary prevention involves actions taken to identify and treat an illness or disability early in its occurrence. Monitoring your symptoms, taking your medication, dietary changes, following treatment regimens. Now this has been a problem. People with chronic pain have been given opiates and opioids. Opiates and opioids are not for chronic pain, it turns out. The medical community made a mistake. The medical community always gives you enough stuff to take care of your problem, theoretically. So when you go to the doctor, you've got an infection. The doctor gives you 3 weeks of antibiotics, and he tells you to take all your pills. Now he's right. You need to take as many pills as you can to knock out that bacteria. But you've got an extra week there. Should you take that extra week's worth of antibiotics? After your disease is gone and you continue to take your antibiotics, what are you doing? You're overdosing yourself. Actually, you are. You're making it more likely that that bacteria the next time will not be susceptible to that antibiotic. That's exactly what happened with penicillin. They over-treated us with penicillin. And then all of a sudden we've got all this penicillin-resistant bacteria. So we had to come up with broad-spectrum antibiotics that would knock out that bacteria. This happened with gonorrhea. We had gonorrhea. Gonorrhea was very sensitive to penicillin. And we had guys that kept coming down with gonorrhea, and we kept treating them for gonorrhea, and we shot them up with 10,000 units of penicillin, 5 cc's in each hip. We're hitting them with all this penicillin. It's knocking out the gonorrhea, but eventually that gonorrhea became insensitive to penicillin. So we had penicillin-resistant gonorrhea. What do you treat people with gonorrhea that is penicillin resistant? What do you treat them with? We didn't have anything to treat them. What do you do with them? You don't let them go back out into society, that's for sure. Or they're going to be spreading all this bad gonorrhea stuff out. Now one of the things we know about opiates and opioids is it's not for chronic pain. It's for acute pain.
Did you say cute?
Acute. Acute.
Oh, nice.
A-C-U-T-E.
Nice and
Acute.
cute. Like
It is cute. It's really cute.
Yeah, I say cute. That's like
It's for serious pain right now. So you can use it today, and you can use it tomorrow. But if you use it over 3 or 4 weeks, then your pain is going to reroute itself around the blockage. And that's what has happened. So in order for you to knock out that pain, you have to take a stronger and stronger dosage. It's not for chronic pain. It's for acute pain. And doctors made that mistake. And they made that mistake back in 2001. And they've been making that mistake for the last 20 years. And now we got a problem. We've got all these people addicted to opiates and opioids. The pills that they are given by the doctor aren't strong enough, so they have to take 2 of them. Now they've doubled their dosage. Well, that works for a while. Now they have to take 3. Now we got a problem. Now we got a really serious problem because the doctor's not going to give you that many pills. Okay, why am I talking about this? So take your medication, but be smart about it. If your infection is gone and it's been gone for 2 or 3 days, don't take any more pills. You don't need them. All you're doing is making it possible for that bacteria to become resistant to that antibiotic. So stop taking your pills. Don't ever let a doctor know that I said that. They think that they know everything. And the reality is that Sharon may be one way, and Chris may be another way, and Monique may be a totally different way. And so it's okay for her to take all of her pills. Chris should have stopped after 2 weeks. And Monique, she knocked hers out in the first week. So here she's got 2 extra weeks worth of pills. And if you take that, then potentially it's going to hurt you, or maybe the bacteria will become insensitive to it. It really all depends. We're all different, but doctors treat us all the same. Everybody got 3 weeks worth of pills. And it worked for her, and it didn't work for her. And Chris was right in the middle. Way to go, Chris, you're right in the middle. Okay. But Sharon's the only one that should have taken all of her pills. That's the way it works. But the doctor's not going to monitor that. So we need to be smart. We need to be smart. Smarter than the doctors. The doctors think everybody is the same. They think everybody, despite the fact that you look differently, they're going to treat you all the same. Sharon and I take the same medication. She's, how tall are you? 6 foot? I weigh 185, she doesn't, okay? If they give us pills, they're going to give us the same number of pills, despite the fact you're a lot smaller than I am. You're also a female, and I'm a male, but they're going to treat us exactly the same, despite the fact that you weigh a lot less than I do. You have a lot less body mass than I do. Because I'm male and you're female, I have more muscle mass, and you have more fat mass, but they're going to give us exactly the same thing. But the reality is, you're completely different than I am. I mean, we're not different species, certainly, but I mean, your biochemical makeup is totally different than mine is. You have periods, I don't. I'm male, males don't have those things. So you can see the difference that I'm talking about. So we need to be smart about these things, where the doctor's not that smart. We can change our dietary structure. We can follow treatment regimens, which we should do. We need to follow those treatment regimens. You are the expert about your body, not the doctor. The doctor gets to see 100 people a week, and you're just one of those people. So if something doesn't work, you need to tell it, or her, whichever the case may be. Treatment prevention involves action taken to contain damage once a disease or disability has progressed beyond its early stages. Radiation therapy, chemotherapy, we're talking about treating cancer here. Less cost-effective and less beneficial than primary or secondary prevention. The best way to treat a disease is not to get it. How's that? There we go. So you need to try to stay away from diseases if you possibly can. The most common form of health care, of course, is prevention. The disease that killed our ancestors have now been eradicated. We've almost eradicated polio. They had an outbreak of polio in Iraq, in one of the, or Syria, I'm sorry, is in Syria. Smallpox, we almost eradicated smallpox. Tetanus used to kill a lot of people. Now it's not very common. Diphtheria, of course, we inoculate children for diphtheria. But people aren't getting shots anymore. We have a select percentage of the population that will not inoculate their children. And for that reason, we just had a measles outbreak up in Washington State, because they are a state that doesn't require people to have their children inoculated. In most states, in this state, if you don't inoculate your children can't go to public school. They can't go to school. But it's not that way in California and Washington. Rheumatic fever used to kill people. Rheumatic fever is a disease of beta strep group A. The same thing causes sore throat. Beta strep, rheumatic fever is caused by that bacteria getting into your heart, causing rheumatic fever. My brother had rheumatic fever. And he was out of school for a year. He was a carrier. Yeah. It's beta strep group A. It's the same stuff that causes throat infection. Now the strange part was, so he had rheumatic fever. Well, there were 5 others of us in the family, and none of us had strep throat. But he had rheumatic fever, and he had to stay out of school for a whole year. Gave him a heart murmur. Lucky him, when he was 18 years old, graduated from high school, his draft number was 1. And they drafted him, despite the fact he had a heart murmur. And he served 2 tours in Vietnam. So it didn't kill him, I guess. Hasn't killed him yet, anyway. Community barriers. People are more likely to adopt health-enhancing behaviors when they are promoted by community organizations. Some environments promote health-compromising behaviors. Alcohol use and binge drinking are more prevalent among college students than among their peers who do not attend college. And of course, if you go up to the Northern Plains, not especially around here, but if you go up to the Northern Plains, when those guys go out to drink, they drink all their alcohol this weekend. They will drink it all, right? They're binge drinkers up north. And that's not a very healthy pattern of drinking, is binge drinking. But they'll drink everything in the house, and then they'll go make a run to another town and try to find more booze. And if they can, of course, they stop drinking. But if they can, they'll keep drinking until they drink all their alcohol. And usually that takes a couple days, Saturday and Sunday. Friday night, Saturday into Sunday. And then, of course, they have to go to work on Monday morning, so they'll stop. But they were drunk all weekend. They were a mess all weekend. College students used to do the same thing. But college students would start drinking on Thursday nights and skip Friday classes, and then they'd stay drunk all weekend, and then they'd go to class on Monday. Try to sober up on Sunday and go to class on Monday. That's the way college students at a traditional college will do things. So if you go off to the university, all them white kids, they're going to practice this style of drinking, this binge drinking, and they'll stay drunk all weekend. These are the biggest drinkers. Kids at this age group are the biggest drinkers in the United States. College kids. So you're going to be running into these kids potentially. Of course, you're all too smart to even participate in that type of behavior. You're all way, way too smart, and you're all way, way too mature. Some of you are anyway. Has anybody been to another university? Have anybody been to ASU or NAU or any place?
Yeah.
Anybody? Who?
Puget Sound, University of Puget Sound.
You went to Puget Sound?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Well, I didn't go to school there, but I was there for like a month.
Huh.
Through college.
Did you see a lot of drinking?
Just for like summer students.
My God, I was in the service with a guy from that went to Puget Sound. He was a he said everybody does this. He was in
Like the bar is just a couple blocks away.
Yeah.
Different bars. Yeah.
Sure. And they go bar hopping, which is so much fun. I've never been a drinker. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I got a scholarship up there, but it was just too far for me.
It's so cloudy all the time.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
And
Puget Sound is,
too expensive.
yeah.
The houses are like really close. Like there's a house, and then there's like a little puny walkway, and it's like grass, and then there's like a house again, and it's like that. It's like a walkway and a small. And that's how.
You can barely fit through. Yeah. Put the houses as close together as you possibly can. Health system barriers. Medicine tends to focus on treatment rather than prevention. Early warning signs go undetected. Economic forces undermine the efforts of healthcare workers to promote preventative measures. In 2010, 49 million Americans did not have health insurance. Is this after Obamacare? Wait a minute. When was Obamacare passed? 2012? Yeah. There were a lot of Americans that didn't have health care. Now you guys don't have to worry about it because you have IHS. And as long as you're near an IHS hospital, you at least can get health care. It may be really bad health care, but you're going to at least have health care. So what happens if you leave what would have happened to Denise when she went to Puget Sound? Is there an IHS hospital anywhere close? You could have gone to Colville, that's up north of Spokane. That's pretty far away to be traveling for health care, I guess.
Where's this place at?
I'm sorry?
Where's this university at?
Puget Sound,
It's
Washington State.
Yeah,
Oh.
Seattle. You take a plane to
Oh,
Seattle,
nice.
then you go down, or does it go up?
What?
To Tacoma. Where's Tacoma at? Is it?
Where were you? Oh, you were right on Puget Sound. Tacoma's south, would have been south of you. Tacoma's the capital of the state.
Yeah.
I know Seattle and Tacoma and there's a bunch of just
But
cities
this
that
was
are
like 8 years ago. Yeah.
You're probably wise trying to leave the area. Suicide rate in that area is very, very high. And the reason is because of the fog. It's overcast a lot, rains a lot, because it's right there on the sound. That's horrible. I can't imagine living there. Sorry, people love it there, I guess. Okay. Okay, so sometimes you don't have the economic forces. 49 million Americans in 2010 didn't have health care, so Obama tried to take care of that. Today, despite the Republican attempt to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, the figure of uninsured in the United States is down to 28 million. As you can see, it was reduced by 21 million Americans. 49 million Americans is a lot of people. It's like 1/6 of our population didn't have any health care at all. Now it's a lot less than that. But, of course, one of the things that Trump is trying to do is do away with Obamacare. There were a lot of people that were really upset with Obamacare. It kind of raised your insurance rates. It did. Mostly it raised it for companies, but it also, if you didn't have insurance, then you had to buy insurance. You had to get into an insurance plan. And of course, those were really upset people since they had to buy insurance. High-risk family characteristics. There's conflict in the family, and there seems to be deficient nurturing taking place. I have no idea why this kid's got his hand up, but his dad isn't paying any attention to him. Many health habits are acquired from parents and other relatives. Parents who smoke are more likely to have children who smoke. Obese parents are more likely to have obese children. Problem drinkers are more likely to have children who abuse alcohol. Right now I'm reading a book about Mickey Mantle. Mickey Mantle was one of the best baseball players who ever lived. He started playing ball in 1951. I think he retired in 66. Fabulous baseball player, biggest drunk you ever saw. While he was playing ball, sometimes he couldn't play, sometimes he played really badly because he was hungover. He was a drinker all of his adult life. He had 5 boys. 3 of them have already died of alcoholism. 3 of his boys have already died. One of his boys is a recovered alcoholic, and the other boy didn't drink at all, and that was the baby of the family. And he wasn't raised by Mickey hardly at all, so he didn't get into the habit. 3 of his boys are already dead. When Mickey Mantle was in his 50s, his liver gave out on him. And they transplanted him. They transplanted a new liver into him. He only lived for 6 more months. And it had nothing at all to do with a bad reaction with the liver. It had to do with the fact that he had destroyed himself so much with his alcohol that his body could only live for 6 more months, even with a healthy liver. They should never have transplanted. It was a waste of liver. As sad as that was. But he was a great baseball player. The reason that they transplanted him was because he was so many people's favorite baseball player. That's the reason they transplanted him. Stupid. If I needed a liver, I'd be really upset. That was in 1995. Injury is the leading cause of death among people between the ages of 1 and 44. The use of terms injury and trauma have replaced accident. We don't really talk about accidents anymore. We talk about traumas. 3 accepted strategies for injury prevention programs: education and behavior change. X Games, that's the dumbest thing in the whole wide world. This is where you throw yourself up in the air and hope that you land on your feet, or on a skateboard, or on a snowboard. You know, you hope you don't land on that rail that you've just been skating down. Kind of a dumb thing to do. But then again, education and behavior change. Legislation and enforcement, of course, we can outlaw these things. Outlaw people doing stupid stunts. Engineering and technology, of course, increases the probability that we won't do stupid things. Or we'll be able to survive our stupid things. 80% come from working families who are uninsured. 80% come from working families. Only 27% come from families with incomes below the poverty level. And the reason is because if you're below the poverty level, you can go on Medicaid. So you've got your health care if you're poor. So we are protecting our poor, which is a good thing. We need to protect our poor. Single adults are at high risk for being uninsured. 45% cite the high cost of insurance as the main reason for being uninsured. They can't afford it. The group that is the most likely to be uninsured are the people between 19 and 34. These are the healthiest people in the country. When I was in the military, all of my patients were between the ages of 19 and 34. Healthiest people in the world. Very rarely saw any interesting cases. So boring. It's usually their wives. Back when I was in the service, there weren't a lot of females in the military, so it's mostly their wives. It's the only time we saw anything good. Everything else was pretty damn boring. As sad as that is, don't cry. I survived. One provision in the Affordable Care Act is that an individual can stay insured on their parents' program until the age of 26. Of course, they tried to do away with this, but they haven't been able to do it yet. So, if you're a college student, you can stay on your parents' insurance. You don't have to buy your own insurance, which is a good thing. Insurance companies, of course, they want to save all the money that they possibly can. So they don't want you on their insurance. Because then if something happens to you, they'll have to pay for it. If you're a drinker and you drive while you're drunk and you're in an accident, they have to pay for it. Whoops. If you're a college student, then you're probably a binge drinker. Potentially, of course, that's a possibility. The majority of uninsured come from working families. Uninsured workers are more likely to have low-wage or blue-collar jobs and to work for small firms or in the service industry. And of course, I've had this argument with Dr. Wolf. Dr. Wolf owns her own company, and she hires all of these people to work for her. Now, unfortunately, because of the ACA, she has to buy insurance for all those people. And it has upset her a great deal. Because she has to pay through the nose for to insure all these people. So she doesn't like the ACA. She doesn't like the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. She hates it. She wishes it would go away. And that's what Trump is trying to do. He's trying to make it go away. Hasn't been able to do it yet. It looks like he's not gonna try to do it anymore. 30.1% of the uninsured individuals are Hispanic. 19.5% of the uninsured are African American. 16.1% of the uninsured are Asian. 10.1% of the uninsured are European Americans. So what race are most of the uninsured people in the United States?
Non-Hispanic.
I'm sorry?
White non-Hispanic.
Right. So most of the uninsured are actually white people. Even though it's only 10% of their of the white population, 70% of the people in the United States are white, as it turns out. 16% are Hispanic. So there are about an equal number of Hispanics and white people who are uninsured. Massachusetts is the state that is the least likely to have uninsured people at 5%. The state of Texas has the highest percentage of uninsured people at 27%. Now, why would Texas have such a high percentage of uninsured people? It turns out that the Affordable Care Act was actually a plan that was developed in Massachusetts. So Massachusetts has a very low percentage of people that aren't insured. And it was passed by Mitt Romney when he was governor of Massachusetts, as curious as that is. And so who did Barack Obama run against? He ran against Mitt Romney, as funny as all that is. I know, we're all just laughing up a storm. So why are there so many uninsured people in Texas? What's wrong with Texas? Why do they have so many uninsured people? Texas is a funny state. If you work in this state, then you pay into Social Security. Is that correct? Right? You pay into Social Security. If you live in Texas, if you work in Texas, you buy an insurance policy. You don't have to pay into Social Security. I know. Metropolitan Life. I worked there for a year, and I've got this insurance policy that's worth $400. And that would be my Social Security. Remember when George Bush, you guys are too young, when George W. Bush first became, or was running for president, he wanted to do away with Social Security. He wanted to do away with Social Security. He wanted you to be able to buy in to your own insurance policy. That's what he wanted. Well, that's because that's what they were doing in Texas. Now, what would have happened, you remember the stock market crash. So he wanted you to be able to invest that money in anything you wanted. So then the stock market crashed. And what would have happened if you had been able to do that would have been that you would have lost all that money. Now when I retire, which is going to happen next year because when you turn 70 you have to sign up for Social Security. But when I turn 70, they're going to start paying me my Social Security. And because I didn't retire until I was 70, I'll make an optimum amount of money, which is like $2,700 a month. I know. So I'll be paid $2,700 a month for the rest of my life. Now they're hoping that I die younger, well, in my 70s rather than my hundreds. Because if I live into my hundreds, it's going to cost the federal government lots and lots of money to support me. Now this is a tragedy. So somebody should shoot me when I turn 71.
We'll just take away your mouth.
So why are there so many uninsured people in Texas? One of the reasons is because they don't pay into Social Security. There's other people in the United States that don't pay into Social Security. If you work for the railroad, you don't pay into Social Security. They have their own retirement fund. So you don't have to pay into Social Security. So they don't take money away from Social Security. And the state of Texas pays into the Metropolitan Life. If Metropolitan Life ever collapses, the whole state of Texas is screwed. Because they all pay into that insurance policy. As stupid as that sounds. So why does Texas have so many uninsured people? Remember what we said before, 30% of Hispanics don't have are uninsured. over half the population in Texas is Hispanic, as it turns out. That's why they have so many uninsured people. Some areas of the country encourage their citizens to exercise. The healthiest state in the union has been Colorado for a really, really long time. And that's because they have promoted this whole concept of exercise. Now they figured that they could legalize marijuana and their exercise level would take care of everything. But it hasn't worked that way. What has been happening in Colorado, a lot of people that want to smoke pot are moving to Colorado. Well, these aren't the healthiest people in the world. Whereas Colorado was the healthiest state in the union, now all of a sudden they're not anymore. And it's mainly because they have people moving in who have an unhealthy lifestyle. People who smoke pot are not exercisers. Sometimes they are, but not very often. When you smoke pot, all you want to do is sit there and look at the back of your hand. while you're stoned. So if you smoke a lot of pot, you just sit there a lot and not do a whole lot. That's the way it works. It's not like you smoke pot, go out and run for 10 miles. It doesn't work that way. Usually you can't run for 10 miles. You stop and you start looking at the rocks. Oh, aren't they beautiful? Anyway, I know. Austin, Texas has built neighborhoods around the green energy and often areas to exercise. There's a lot of walkways where people can exercise. So Austin, Texas is a very healthy place. Sleep may be the elixir of health. 1 in 5 adults experiences sleep deprivation that may be caused by sleep disorders. They may be have insomnia, narcolepsy. They may be sleepwalkers, or they may have sleep apnea. Most people with sleep apnea are overweight, and that's one of the reasons why they have sleep apnea. When they get into a select position, it cuts off their airway and they stop breathing. If the more fat you have around your esophagus, the more likely that this will happen. However, you can have sleep apnea and be skinny as a minute. It's just that you tend to get into cramped positions. When I was in the military, a lot of individuals could fall asleep. If you told them we're stopping for 5 minutes, they'd fall asleep for 5 minutes, and they could fall asleep dead asleep in a nanosecond. It was just the most amazing thing. It all depended on what kind of person they were, but it was really kind of interesting. But some individuals, they put themselves in a cramped position. I can only fall asleep in the fetal position. I have to be on my side and all curled up. Well, sometimes you cut off your airway, just because that's the position you have to be in to fall asleep. So sleep apnea doesn't have to have something to do with obesity. It usually does, but it doesn't have to have something to do with it. Stress or a demanding work study schedule can cause sleep deprivation as well. I used to have a colleague that if they were trying to teach a new class, they'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start doing their work. They'd go to bed at 11 and they'd wake up at 3. Or they'd go to bed at 12 and they wake up at 3. But they'd do everything at 3 o'clock. They always did their best work at 3 o'clock in the morning. But you'd see them the next day and they've got bags under their eyes and their eyes are all black. Sleep debt promotes increased body weight because your body doesn't metabolize properly. It suppresses your immune function, so you're more susceptible to diseases. The effects can mimic accelerated aging, so you look older because you aren't getting enough sleep. When they talk about beauty sleep, that's true. The way to stay beautiful all your life is to get proper sleep. I don't have to worry about that. I've never been beautiful, so I don't have to worry about that. Studies have shown that teenagers are not getting enough sleep. A school district in Minnesota moved their start time till later in the morning to give their students more of a chance to sleep in. These individuals were waking up late and not eating breakfast. They have started These individuals are starting to eat breakfast more readily. They've had improved attendance. They've had less tardiness, greater alertness in class, calmer school atmosphere, fewer disciplinary and counseling referrals. This is a study that has been done. We know that this is true. Teenagers have a really erratic sleep schedule. So the later that you start your school day, the more likely that these individuals are going to be functional when they do to come to school. So you would think that all the states in the union would have looked at this and said, maybe that's what we should do for our kids. Maybe that's what we should do for our teenagers. My son has to get up at 5:30 in the morning so he can get to school. His school starts at 7 o'clock in the morning. He teaches mathematics. Do you know how many kids can do mathematics at 7 o'clock in the morning? They have actually moved up the schedule in Florida. That's how stupid they are. My son wants to leave so bad. He hates it. He says it's worse. They're having disciplinary problems. They're having all kinds of problems. They're having drug problems on campus. He's had students attack him. If you ever saw my son, you'd go, my God, who's going to attack him? He looks like a professional wrestler. He's got shoulders like this. He's got arms that are as big as my leg. Who's going to attack him? Stupid people, that's who. You don't want to attack somebody that looks like my son. But he's been attacked, as odd as that seems. Health education is any planned intervention involving communication and promotes the learning of healthier behavior. Precede, proceed model identifies specific health problems in a community. It identifies lifestyle and environment elements that contribute to the targeted behavior. It analyzes background factors that predispose, enable, and reinforce these lifestyles and environmental elements. The precede, proceed model implements a well-designed health education program. So we could do that here. We could do that here with diabetes. What is the problem? Why are there so many people with diabetes? It's not just because I'm their friend and I keep giving them sodas. Don't give that many sodas away, just the one guy. So what is the problem here on the reservation? I think you guys have already said it once. What's the problem here? How can we fix it? What's the biggest problem you have on the reservation? Why are so many people coming down with diabetes?
Free
Already
healthcare.
said. I'm sorry?
Free healthcare.
The free healthcare, that's why they're coming down with diabetes?
They have that option, so they don't have to take advantage.
Junk food. Yeah. So how many stores are there on the reservation? How many groceries are there on the reservation? 3. Bash's, City Market, and Shiprock. Where's the third one? Oh, it's Bash's in Pinyon, right? That's the third one. Well, 2 of the cities got it. Oh, wait a minute, there's one in Ganado. Yeah, there's more than 3. Let me see. A lot. And the one I went to the City Market on Friday. Boy, they've got everything. Their produce looks good. They have ripe bananas. Shipper. I'm not with it. Shipper. So the biggest problem we have is shitty food. The food isn't very good. Now we have good people here, like Kiana, who ate fruit for breakfast and drank water. Good job. But we also have people eating donuts for breakfast. What's for lunch? How about some deep fried food from the gas station? There you go. And not only that, but you're hungry for that food, right? You're hungry for a donut for breakfast. So if you had a choice between a banana and a tangerine or a donut, how many people will take the banana and the tangerine? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. This is what happened on Friday. On Friday, they came out with all this stuff. They had breakfast burritos, they had donuts, and they had all this, they had a whole thing of fruit. The donuts were gone first. I mean, that was. And I didn't eat any of them. I didn't eat any of the fruit either. But I didn't eat any of the donuts. But yeah, the donuts were gone almost right away. And they were fighting over the last donut. It was a chocolate covered donut. I know. They had like 5 dozen donuts. And there were, I don't know how many people. Come on in, I was just talking about you. And your habits, your bad habits. No, my bad habit, I keep giving you soda. There he's laughing about it. He thinks it's funny. I'm killing him now.
Yeah, he is.
He is? Yeah, exactly.
Nice charges, huh?
I was hired by the federal government to kill as many Indians as I possibly could while I was here.
Well, non-due. One Mountain Dew at a time.
Yeah, it's my weapon of choice.
And chocolate cake.
Thousands of years of colonization.
Exactly, exactly. And I'm colonizing you with Mountain Dew. Campaigns that merely inform people of the hazards of certain behaviors, such as anti-smoking messages, are typically ineffective. Multifaceted campaigns that present information on several fronts are generally more effective than single-shot campaigns. This campaign doesn't work. This campaign might work if you talk about not only is the tobacco killing you, but it also costs you $1,825 a year. If you're talking to white people, you talk about money, they react almost every time. Yeah, they're big on bucks. This one, not so much. Yeah, it's not going to kill me. I'm one of those guys that won't have to worry about it. An important message, an important factor in health education is the wording used or the framing of the message. A game-framed message focuses on attaining positive outcomes or avoiding undesirable ones by adopting a health-promoting behavior. If you exercise frequently, you will look and feel better. If you exercise regularly, you are less likely to be obese or suffer from chronic diseases. Which one would change your behavior more likely? Which one is more likely to change your behavior? The second one? Because you're trying to keep yourself from being obese and you're trying to keep yourself away from chronic diseases, okay? Loss frame messages focuses on a negative outcome from the failing to perform a health-promoting behavior. If you don't exercise, you will be more susceptible to debilitating diseases. If you don't exercise, you won't have the extra energy that exercising provides. Which one of those would be the most likely to convince you to exercise? Which one? Well, you got a 50-50 chance of getting the right one. The first one? Yeah, it's the first one. So you would rather stay away from diseases than have extra energy. Tailored messages are customized to the individual characteristics of recipients. I think, nope, not yet, okay. I'll show you some crystal meth advertisements in just a second. A loss frame fear message is a health message that focuses on the negative outcomes from failing to perform a health-promoting behavior. Scare tactics that arouse fear may backfire and decrease a person's likelihood of changing his or her beliefs and behaviors. A key factor in determining the effects of threatening health messages is the recipient's perceived self-efficacy regarding the behavior. If you scare them too much, they will just not look. They won't see it. Loss-framed fear appeals are more effective in promoting illness detection behaviors. This is a advertisement that they used up in Montana. There was a really serious crystal meth problem. And so one of the things they talked about was prostitution. You'll prostitute yourself for $15 so that you can get your next fix. This worked. This really worked. When I first went to Montana in 2001, the problem with crystal meth was everywhere. It was just everywhere. An individual who was a billionaire and lived in Montana, his daughter died from crystal meth. And he started this program. And he decided he would scare people out of using it. And it worked. It actually worked. Some of the other advertisements that they used, They talked about sex a lot. Of course, this is a different population. And they scared people out of doing this stuff by telling them that they would have sex with strange people in strange places, like in the toilet. Ew. And they scared them into not using by showing what they would look like. And once again, before meth I had a daughter, now I have a prostitute. So, trying to scare them out of using. Beating an old man for money isn't normal, but on meth it is. Up there, elders are very important to the natives in the area. So this was a very telling advertisement. Anyway, fear-inducing, and it worked. It really worked. They were deathly afraid of injuring somebody, injuring an elder. They take care of their old people up there.